वरेण्यः। हे प्रभु मेरे परम सखा, परम सखा, मेरे परम सखा। हे प्रभु मेरे परम सखा, परम सखा, मेरे परम सखा। तुम ही बंधु हो, तुम ही स्नेही, तुम ही हो मात पिता। दुख में धीरज देने वाले, कष्ट में सुध लेने वाले। दुख में धीरज देने वाले, कष्ट में सुध लेने वाले। तुम ही सहाय।
सहना भवतु, सहनौ भुनक्तु, सह वीर्यं करवावहै, तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Just excuse me for a minute, please. Sorry about that. So what we were talking about is that there is a principle, a base principle in your spiritual sadhana. What is that base principle? You all mean anybody in the world, whoever does any spiritual sadhana anywhere in the world, there is a base principle involved. What is that base principle?
Thought removes thought.
Every single method of spiritual growth will have that. And what it has is that thought removes thought. Very good. Thought removes thought. But not any thought. Which thought?
Higher thought.
Higher thought.
Higher and subtler. Jankiji, you're muted.
Correct. Higher. So the whole principle of spiritual sadhana, any sadhana, anybody does. They may not call it sadhana, whatever in the world they call it. The principle is the same. That you are thinking of higher thoughts, and because you're thinking of higher thoughts, the lower thoughts are simply fading away and dying. This is a base. It doesn't matter who is doing what they're doing. As long as there is this attempt for spiritual growth, they have to be doing this. If they're doing anything other than this, their attempt will not work. Because here is your cause and effect relationship. So basically what we do is we fill ourselves so much with higher thoughts that we absolutely crowd out the bad ones. You have no time to think of them. You have no inclination to think of them because all your energy has been put into the higher. And the power of it, even in the most simple things, it works. Like a mother looking after her child. She has no time to think of what she wants and what she doesn't want. There's no time for this because the child is in hospital, he's in ICU. She can't be bothered what she wants, what she doesn't want, what she's comfortable with, what she's not comfortable with. All this is irrelevant in her life. She has a simple question: whatever whatever you're asking me to do or whatever I'm supposed to do, is it helping my child get better or not? She has no time for anything else, no inclination for anything. This is the way we have to be with reference to higher thoughts. And this is a personal commitment. I mean, it's not like somebody can do this for you. You either do it or you don't do it. But either way, it is you. And if imagine, okay, there are just a few of us in class, we're 16 of us in class. If the 16 of us make a personal commitment to this, the world will be a better place. It's just our own personal commitment. I am going to saturate my being with higher thoughts. There cannot be space left for anything else. And the power in that kind of living, you will see demonstrated. Have you not seen that power? Think of somebody like maybe Vivekananda or Ramana Maharishi or anybody, even if it, whatever they were doing, not only spiritual people, any people who did something, they were saturated with that thing so much that they have no time to think of anything else. When you have no time to think of anything else, you have no time to think of yourself. And that is called the dissolution of the ego. Normally, if someone says, coming for an ice cream, what will you think to yourself? Your thought will be, always, would I like to, would I not like to? Does it feel nice? Does it feel comfortable? Do I like to go with this person? Is this a good time for me? This is how we think. Now, suppose you ask Mother Teresa, do you want to come for an ice cream? What is the way she will think of that same thing? it is all associated with her goal. If she goes with you, it's because she believes that by going with you, some good will come to her goal. If she doesn't go with you, it is because she believes no good will come to her for her goal by doing that. Saturated, absolutely saturated. Like that, we have to be saturated with thoughts of the high. Okay, so that's the principle. You fill yourself up with thoughts of the high, and there's no place for thoughts of yourself. Now you'll say, oh my God, if I don't think of myself, then who will think of me? So people will all take me for a merry ride. They won't. You know why they won't? Because they can't. It's like a child taking an adult for a merry ride. It doesn't happen. And if it does, because in this world there are all sorts of people, if it does, there will be a kavach around. You will be so protected from the machinations of these kind of people that it's not going to impact. You know, Swamiji used to say, the weeds will weed themselves out. In the Gita also he says that, that the Rakshasas, they run away from the people who are noble. They will run away. Run away in the sense, not like they're frightened and run away, but they just don't want to be around you. The good people will long to be with a noble soul. The bad people will be most uncomfortable. So they will go away. I mean, they are not going to say, this person is good, I am bad, and therefore I don't want to be. They are just uncomfortable. They don't want to be there. So don't worry who will look after you if you look after the higher. You will be taken care. Nahi kalyan krut kakshit durgatim tat gachati. Krishna's promise to me. Nahi kalyan krut. Kalyana krut means who does auspicious, who does good. Nahi kalyana krut kakshit. Anyone who's doing good. Durgatim partha gachati. Goes to a bad end. Means he meets any negative repercussions. Clear. So all we have to do is commit ourselves to fill ourselves up with the thought of the higher. We just make this commitment to ourselves, not making it to anyone else. And all our time and effort and energy goes in that. If you go to office, it goes in that. If you stay at home, it goes in that. So this is the base principle. I have filled myself with thoughts of the higher, so I have no time, interest, inclination in the lower. This is the base principle. Now, this is an eternal truth. Now, how you will convert this eternal truth into your life, that will be smriti. That will be a rule you have made for yourself. That rule may not be applicable to anyone else, but this principle will be applicable across the board. Okay, so far so good. So okay, so we did the example of the king. Yeah.
Now, how you apply this principle is your individual approach.
Yes.
This is what you said. No? We have to find out our own ways depending on our personality and situations
Yes.
around.
Yes. Correct. So all that will be to do with us. But the principle will not change.
And it applies in
And
your
that's
spirit.
where we have to be careful also, because when we ascribe to other people that you should do this or you should do that, it may not be relevant to us. Now we are currently doing land deals. I don't know if you understand what that means in this country. It's a very interesting thing. A public forum that I guess I should not be speaking about it, but one day maybe when we meet, I'll tell you how complex This whole thing is navigating the right values in it. I mean, the legality is complex in itself, but navigating the right values is something you have to somehow manage given the environment that you're functioning in. And very interesting to see how different people do it. Yeah. Monday, when we have a sort of residential or in-person thing, we can talk about it. How amazing it is. Like, for instance, just as a rough example, think of a government official who takes bribes. Okay, he takes bribes, but he gets your job done. Another official, he is very thing. I don't take bribes, but he never gets any job done. Which of these two people have higher values? An interesting question, no? One is incapable. One, like for instance, in the NGO sector, which nowadays I am coming close to, people are doing so-called social work. In that so-called social work, they love to go to five-star hotels. They have their petty competition between one another. They have, mera naam acha hai ki tumhara naam acha hai, and all this stuff goes on. On the other hand, in the corporate world, I'm just giving you hypothetical situations, okay? In the corporate world, a person has gone to work with the intention of making money. These people claim they don't do it for money. Another person, he claims that I'm going there for my salary. That's his claim. But let's say he does something like set up Geo and cut the costs of everybody's cell phones. Do you remember how much when Geo came, who has done the greater service? Who has been of greater utility to our nation? These are all extremely interesting questions that come to you as you start getting more and more involved in karma. Because when you're very young and inexperienced, then goodness is black and white. And as you mature in your thinking, you begin to see that it's really not that simple. So when I make my commitment to the higher, what does that commitment mean to me? What will I do and what will I not do? When you start sort of working with the knowledge, then it all becomes extremely interesting, thought-provoking. That is how your karma and your jnana start merging. You start beginning to see a lot more, think a lot more. That's why there are three paths, right? Anyway, all this for another day. But as far as today is concerned, yeah, Taruna.
And does that mean people who know what they're doing, in terms of the two examples you gave, NGO and the corporate world, they know they are going for money and they are doing it, they're clear about it, versus people are having a notion that we are doing good and what they're doing, they know. So, in any ways, it is always better to be clear about means they are in a better position mentally.
Yeah, they're better because they're not hypocritical.
Mhm.
What happens, even if you go to make money, if you're clear, I'm going there to making money. Now, nobody's going to come and hand you money. So
Hmm.
if I'm a salesman and I want you to give me money, you're not going to give it to me. Who parts with money, right? So, what am I forced to do? I'm forced to provide you some value, some service, something I'm forced to provide to you. When I do
Right.
that, I may have done you more service than a person who sits at home and says, "Oh, I'm such a great soul. I don't want anything." And then everybody has to come and give him everything. So I'm not suggesting all this is good, that people go to work for money and all. I'm just saying that this is something to think about. Is it proper? Is it not proper? Each one is going to come to their own conclusions, and that's fine. In fact, that's what we are starting a journal for, so that everybody can sort of have their take and then put it forward and let other people get what they want from it. So that's the whole, I mean, sort of the point of even having a journal, that there is the theory and then there is each one's practice and each one thinking about it. So, but we must encourage differences, we must encourage diversity of thought, but whatever thought anyone has to be well conceived, well thought of, all the loopholes built, all sort of dealt with, and then presented rationally, well presented. And I hope you all will all take advantage of the fact that this is happening. It's basically for us only. So we are only creating the journal and we are only reading the journal. I don't know who else will be interested, but it's part of this harmony. I don't know when the journal is out. The team has been working very hard, so no doubt they'll come up with something. But that's what we need to do. We need to establish the principle and then work with it in our lives and see how our comprehension of this grows. And other people will have different thoughts on that principle. So that sometimes gives us a very interesting view as well.
So this thought, that thought removes thoughts, and the higher thoughts, not any other thoughts, only the higher thoughts, that applies across both in spirituality and in materialistic life as well.
Yeah, I mean, in spirituality, definitely. In materialistic life, um, it works, but on a very relative level, in the sense that um, people who are successful have had to have applied this in some way or manner. The more they've applied it, the more successful they'll be, of course. But spiritually, I mean,
There's no other
every
way.
time we have done it, the power will increase.
Right. Thank you.
Right? So let's continue. We did that example. Remember how when you're so absorbed in the higher, the lower fades out. Like the king is so absorbed in thinking about, how to get the kingdom back, genuinely cannot remember about the kids. But others don't understand this. So they obviously will criticize and say, see, I gave you a small job and you couldn't do it. But can you imagine, your mind is filled. That's why you hear all these funny stories about all the scientists and all these people. Even the most simple, most basic things they seem to get wrong. But really, if Einstein is trying to solve the mysteries of the universe, how can he be interested in his wife telling him, come with me to buy a sari? How can he be interested in that? It's unfair to ask him to be interested. That's why you see Sudha Murthy, she always talks like that. Have you heard her speak? She always says, I left Murthy alone. Basically, that is the bottom line of what she says. She has to, because if he wants to build that kind of, in one generation, to build that kind, it can't be easy, right? It's in one lifetime to take it from zero to where it is now. I mean, you have to imagine, right? He has to sacrifice, his family has to sacrifice, everybody has to sacrifice. That's how it becomes that. Now, the rest of us are not willing to make that sacrifice, and we'll say this and that. It's very easy to run down somebody's accomplishment. And India, so we are very good at that. We just don't seem to enjoy anybody else's success. If somebody does well, we are bound to say, something negative about that person. Let us rejoice in other people's success, right? If you rejoice in his success, it's such a simple equation. If you rejoice in his success, you don't have to become a Narayan Murti to enjoy Narayan Murti's success, right? You'll get so much enjoyment out of doing nothing. Out of laziness, at least enjoy other people's success. Or enjoying like Narayan Murti, and you had to do nothing. Yeah, just feel happy, right? An Indian has done something. How cool. So, the thing is, when you are absorbed in the higher, you have no mental interest in the lower. And sometimes to the point of funniness. And we did the story about Newton. And Newton, can you imagine what a giant intellect? He must be a goat. You know what a goat is, right? Greatest of all times. Goat, they call them nowadays. All time greats. Now, this goat, greatest of all times, that's why GOAT, goat. He must be one of the best intellects that was ever there on the surface of this earth. Now, I mean, look at the kind of discoveries, calculus, physics, everything is what in this. He cannot understand that the big cat and the small cat can go out of the same door. This is typical. When you're absorbed in the higher, the lower is totally out of focus, totally gone. Can you imagine Newton not understanding this much? Sounds crazy, no? So, okay, is this clear so far? So good. Does anyone have a question?
It's in the chat.
Yeah. Isn't the potential for a money-minded person to slip into illegal activities greater if it's all about money to begin with? Yes, all these dangers are there. There's danger everywhere you go. Every single path you choose, whatever path you choose, the mind is always there. Right? The mind is not leaving you no matter what happens. So, any path you choose, the mind is there. If you begin with a selfish intent, you don't have a kavach. You don't have protection. If you begin with an unselfish intention, you will have protection. But the point of all those examples was that these so called good people sometimes are more hypocritical and therefore less service oriented than the selfish people. That was the point. Maybe, I'm saying maybe. I was just giving you scenarios in which you could think about these things. Is
Okay.
that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, who will
Ma'am,
lead? Yeah.
unselfish people, they also have to apply their intellect, na? Otherwise,
They have to apply their intellect, they have to get over their tamas. Abhi, we
Mhm.
put on a nice crown on our own head and say we are so unselfish, we are so good. So, karke dikhao to say.
Mm.
We are all ready to pat ourselves on the back. You know how good I am. When we judge other people, we judge them based on what they have done.
Mm.
When we judge ourselves, we judge ourselves on what we hope.
Thing. Mm. Right. So it is not enough to be good.
It is
Means
not, yeah, good
not
in the
enough
sense,
to be unselfish. You in areas you have to apply your intellect also. Otherwise, your mind can also take over anytime.
of course. But it's that, yes, but that is in Rajas, what you just said. But that same thing is applicable in Tamas as well. Because otherwise, we all think, no, if you ask anybody in
Good.
this class, are you a good person? Yeah, I'm a good person. My neighbor is not a good person.
Mm.
So, ये
Okay.
पदवी
Good.
किसने दी?
Good have two combinations, commerce and with rajas
Yeah,
as well.
because
Different.
I am so self-satisfied that I'm good कि मुझे कुछ करने की आवश्यकता ही नहीं है. मैं तो गुड हूँ ही. इन लोगों को
So,
करना चाहिए.
so the good people with tamas they will, when they get into action, they get into the rajas part of it if
Yeah,
they don't apply their intellect
maybe.
along
But
with.
at the moment, the point is that all this goodness is something I am judging myself based on the fact of what my thoughts are, not
And
based on the fact of what my actions.
when we come to action, then we know how good we are. Then we come to understand,
Yeah. When
right?
you have to go look after your mother-in-law, then you find out how good you are. When you
Yes.
don't have to look after her and we have to stay at home nicely by ourselves, then we are so good. So
True.
when that situation comes, that's a much better way of checking ourselves. Mhm.
Right. Thank you.
How much we believe, one very good example is always how much we believe we will give when we become richer. We think rich people sorry, I don't know what is happening to the thing is the house is being painted, so things are a bit upside down around here. So, but Wi-Fi was okay so far. I don't know what is the problem with that. But anyway, when we think about giving, how much will I give? Suppose I'm Mukesh Ambani. How much will I give? In my mind, Mukesh Ambani should give away 99% of his wealth because he has so much. But suppose I were Mukesh Ambani, would I really give 99% away? Okay, if you see in your own life, you may notice that your level of giving has not grown in proportion to the growth of income. Suppose you was to earn 10,000 rupees and you used to say give 100 rupees as a donation at some point. Now you're earning a lakh of rupees. But that donation amount will become 2,000 rupees or something like that. I hope I'm getting this maths right. So it doesn't grow in proportion, though we think it will. So when we are thinking about how much we will give, should we have money, we are going to give a lot. And when we do have the money, that's not how much we really give. So in every aspect, we judge ourselves by what we are going to do. तो ये पदवी हमने खुद ही दे दी अपने आप कि I am good. Because my thoughts are all noble and very nice thoughts I have. Sitting in my armchair, I can have any thought. जरा कुछ करके तो दिखाओ. Do something. Who has benefited from these thoughts so far? All right? Clear? Yeah, Bharat.
Yeah. So Janki ji, this isn't the person is not being deceptive here, right? He genuinely believes that he will give one day.
Yes.
That's right. So he believes in his own nonsense.
Yeah.
Starts believing in it. Okay.
Yeah. He's not trying to deceive. He genuinely thinks. Okay. So who will read the next paragraph?
Janki ji, it's usually only you who's reading this class.
Oh, sorry. sorry. So Then we started on the various paths, right? The principle is you have to have a higher. So now when you say I have to have a higher thought, then how are you going to execute this? You get three options. You can execute it with reference to action. You can execute it with reference to emotion, or you can execute it with reference to knowledge. Right? So when you execute it with reference to karma, to action, that's called karma yoga. That means your actions are done for a higher cause. I think everybody gets that quite clearly in the class, isn't it? Everybody's clear about karma yoga, right? I mean, regardless of whether we do it or not, at least intellectually we are clear about what it is to be done. Okay. Then the second thing is with reference to bhakti or emotions. Now, emotions is not simply a matter of feeling something. Ghar mein baithe hain, you're feeling something. It doesn't work just like that. It is, you can test it by what even makes you angry. What does somebody have to do to make you angry? You can test it by noticing whether in any situation you are aware of the receipts that are constantly on. Suppose you have a maid, and the maid is a really inefficient lady, and she really irritates you because she's so inefficient. Do you ever stop to say, thank God, at least she's regular in coming? Because however badly she does something, at least she does some things, so I don't have to do those. In every aspect, no matter where we are, no matter how bad the situation is, we are in receipt of something. Am I conscious of that? Your spouse irritates you, mother-in-law irritates you, government irritates you, anything. While they are irritating you, you are still receiving from them. Are you aware of it? And awareness means the genuine awareness will lead to that emotion. To mobile data, shall I try that? What is the time? 7:37. Shall I go and make some attempt to change it? Or let's try one more time. Can you hear me or not?
Yes.
Just now,
You
the
will hear.
voice.
Okay, fine. So the second, can't hear you. Okay, let me try and make a change to mobile data and see if that works. Just give me a minute. How is it now? Is it fine? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So when we are thinking of the higher, what do we have? We have the options of doing it, of manifesting that particular thought process of thinking of the higher, either through our actions, which means karma yoga, or through our emotions. Now, emotions doesn't mean you just sit down and sing bhajans and you think, oh my God, it's so wonderful. That's not what it means. It means that you're translating that into your everyday life with questions such as, who is irritating me? How much are they irritating me? To understand how much real love have I got in my heart. You're just seeing how much bhakti I've got means how much love do I have in my heart. And when you have that love in your heart, you're really quite, how should I say, accommodating of others. Not that you don't see that they're behaving foolishly, but you can deal with it. And it's just like you're dealing with a child. You can see they're behaving foolishly and you can deal with it. And that doesn't bother you at all. In fact, you find it quite funny that people are trying to act funny with you. So you can see your love. Am I getting irritated? Do you have the capacity to irritate me? If you have the capacity to irritate me, you and I are at the same level. Because children don't irritate. Children means you love your child, he's not going to irritate you because he is acting naughty. You know fully well that ये तो ऐसे ही है. Now, second quality of having the higher thought in terms of our emotion is the awareness of how much we are receiving from people, from beings, from nature, from environment, from God, from even when people are irritating you, you're receiving from. That consciousness of receipt. It's so easy to run down people when they do something for us. When somebody does something for us, we'll say, you're just showing off. Or, yeah, you have too much money, so you're spending it on me. What is it? You run people down when they do things for you. Sometimes it happens quite subtly. Somebody says to you, oh, you're such a wonderful person. And you run the person down. You make that person feel bad for having said that. It's not a nice thing. You say you're a wonderful person. The most polite thing to say is thank you. You need not take it, but at least don't throw it back on his face. No, I have to pretend to be humble. So, awareness of receipts. And the third quality of that thought of the higher in terms of emotion is the recognition of ignorance. The more we understand that we don't understand. Not only do we not understand, we cannot understand. ऐसे नहीं कि एक दिन आएगा where we will understand. वो दिन ही नहीं आने वाला. Because I have a very, very small buddhi is not going to understand the vastness of this. It's not going to. And if you think you're going to, you're just fooling yourself. That's why there is a saying in English, it says, gosh, it's amazing how much you have to know that you know nothing. Interesting. So, how does that higher thought manifest in terms of bhakti? Is like this. All right. And I think we have to do Nyan, right? So let's just do. Bhakti is what? Universal affection, a constant awareness of the benediction of nature. And bhakti also includes surrender, the recognition of our own vast ignorance in the face of reality. You can try, you will say, forget, I don't want reality. I will just study swans. Even if you say, I will just study swans, your whole life will go, you will not know everything about swans. You say, no, swans are too big. I will study amoeba. You can work your whole life long. You will not understand the amoeba. It's amazing how much you have to know. To know, you know nothing. Jnana, knowledge yoga, is the use of the intellect in developing higher thoughts. So now when you do it with the intellect, the process is different. What is this process? The intellect discriminates between what is permanent and what is passing, what is um, passing, ephemeral. One understands the temporary nature of the lower and does not invest thoughts in it. We all should memorize this line. One understands the temporary nature of the lower and does not invest thoughts in it. Somebody was rude to you. It took him 30 seconds to be rude to you. The nature of the lower is that it doesn't last. Those 30 seconds of his rudeness are over, gone, gayab. You say, no, how dare he be rude to me? You who are so affected by this rudeness will not remember it next month. Will not remember it next month. Do not invest thoughts on things that you're not even going to remember next month. You yourself are not going to remember. If I ask you, last year in April, who was rude to you? Can you answer that question? And yet, when that thing happened, you were quite worked up about it. Now, if I remind you about it, you will say, yeah, something had happened, no? One understands the temporary nature of the lower and does not invest thoughts in it. Things will come and things will go. Why am I wasting my time over it? One's thoughts revolve around the higher. There's some productive use in that. It will lift my personality. What is the productive use? Suppose tonight after class, you go to dinner and that dinner is burnt. And you'll say, I was so hungry and I was looking forward to eating this dish. It's my favorite dish and it was burnt. And you're extremely disappointed. And it just some maza kirkira kar. Right? Next month, will you remember this burnt dinner? Then why are you thinking so much about it now? When you decide, okay, now I'm going to wear, I will wear my green t-shirt today. No, I think I should wear blue today. And I can spend half an hour deciding, shall I wear the green one or shall I wear the blue one? Next month, are you going to remember which one you wore? One understands the temporary nature of the lower and does not invest thoughts in it. One's thoughts revolve around the higher. This is Jnana Yoga. That you know what to think about. That is the discrimination that we have to make. Is it worthy of my thoughts? Remember, my thoughts make my life. So is this thing worthy of my thought? The most powerful thing I have with me are my thoughts. I have an atom bomb and I'm releasing it on an ant, then I'm a mad person. As the thoughts rise to the higher, subtler realms, the lower thoughts wane away. Finally, what is left is the one thought of self-realization or God realization. This last thought is dropped in the silence of meditation. So basically, you just keep raising the thought, raising the thought, raising the thought until we come to a point where the only thought is self-realization. You don't start like that. Or maybe some people may be able to start like that, but whatever thought they have to gradually go up until you come to silence. Those who do not understand these basics attempt to meditate in the earlier stages of the journey, where the process requires the creation of thought. You don't understand the basic principle, then what happens is you do very, very strange things. Like in the beginning, why are you meditating? What do you think is going to happen with that meditation? Meditation, the purpose of meditation is to remove the last thought. You have to end it in silence, right? By sitting in silence now, what are you going to get? Those who do not understand these basics attempt to meditate in the earlier stages of the journey, where the process requires the creation of thought. Today, to create the higher thoughts, not get rid of them. The journey to a large part consists of the creation of the thought of God, truth, the desire for reality. Most of the spiritual journey is you're going to be just creating the thought for God. Don't try to give it up. You have to create it. The journey to a large part consists of the creation of the thought of God, truth, the desire for reality, for liberation from the thraldom of the known. Most of the path is you're creating the desire. Removing the desire is very, very far away. The thought has first to be strengthened so that the other thoughts drop off. One has to be suffused with the ideal. Later, when there's only the thought of the ideal, only the last thought left, there is only the desire for transcendental. That thought is removed through the technique of meditation. Deep Raj, why most of the path? Because the largest section of the path will be the section for the yogi. You remember the yogi, sannyasi, jnani gradation? Yogi is the earlier part where you have a bulk of desires. So you will have to keep taking higher thoughts until you are able to have the thought of the self or very few higher desires. So the bulk, the time is taken in the yogi part, in the beginning part, where you're just creating higher desires. And of course, creating them, working on them, all of that. Then you become a sannyasi, which means now you have the thought of the Lord. But even that's not a stable thought then. So you're still working on removing other thoughts. So bulk goes in this business only. Meditation will be a very small portion of this whole journey. Okay?
Yankiji, I have a question on Jnana Yoga. So we have bought into the principle that higher, and we've also bought into the principle of temporary versus permanent. Now, on a day-to-day life transactions, how do we invoke this in a more powerful way, where this thought of temporary and permanent just stays with us so that we make the right choices?
How do we invoke it? By remembering.
Yeah, so this is meaning this is
choice.
some operating suggestions. That's the thrust of the question of kind of practicing Jnana Yoga on a more sustainable basis.
But basically, you have to ask yourself this question. Suppose you're reacting to something, anything. You're getting angry with something. Then you have to ask yourself, is this something lasting that I'm talking of here, or is it something that I'm not going to remember next month? So I could be getting angry with the fact that a certain country has thrown out our military from there. Okay, now that has a lasting repercussion on our military status or on the defense of the country. This is a lasting influence, this thing. But if Suman says, you brought me raspberry ice cream, but I wanted mango ice cream, then neither she nor you are going to remember this in a month's time. So say, oh, okay, I'm sorry. And be done with it. Your only thing is, if it is a short-term thing, then I take whatever action that I need to take to ride over this short-term inconvenience. But if it's a long-term thing, now I'm going to give it more thought. I'm going to invest more thought. So I'm always keeping one eye on what is the thing I'm thinking about. I don't know. Is that operational enough?
Yeah. I mean, just applying your mind to, consciously say, how long will this last and what is its significance and therefore what,
Yeah, if it's a short-term thing,
and then move on. And as you said, deal with the inconvenience. Yeah, one other question. You said that one of the characteristics of Jnana Yoga is the realization that there is so little you know and that you will never know. As we have seen in this chapter, that's what we are dealing with.
Yeah.
And
Except that was under bhakti.
Sorry?
That was under bhakti.
That's what I was. So that vastness is under bhakti, not under. This one is about permanent and impermanence. Fine, thank you. That
Because
clarifies.
you can't have that here because you have to make a discrimination with your intellect, right? So it's not enough to say, I don't know. You will have to decide now what you're going to do.
And you can't say, I will never know and therefore do nothing about it. Yeah, fine. Thank you.
Once the last thought is dropped, what remains is the ultimate reality. What remains is pure consciousness, absolute knowledge. So you remember where we started from, right? We said that you are the self. This is covered with thoughts. Now you've done this whole journey of how to remove those thoughts. Now you remove those thoughts. So what are you left with? The self. The knower of this knowledge knows something that is far beyond the realm of thought, of worldly knowledge. He is merged with the reality, become one with God. Saint Augustine of Hippo describes it as interesting because you see it across cultures, how they put it. So Saint Augustine of Hippo, he describes it like, his knowledge is not like ours, which has three tenses, past, present, and future. God's knowledge has no change or variation. If it had no variation or change, he cannot learn anything new. If he's omniscient, he is to know everything. That would mean complete predestination. Are you with it so far? See how beautifully he has described God's knowledge. His knowledge is not like ours. Ours has three tenses, past, present, and future. He doesn't have it. There's no future, then there is no change. That means he cannot ever learn something new. If he knows everything, that means predestination. Correct? I hope you're able to see that logic. Yes or no? If God knows everything that's going to happen, that means it's already decided that that thing is going to happen, right? So either you say he doesn't know everything that's going to happen. This is a typical argument atheists make. If you say God knows everything that is to happen, because he can't learn something new, right? So he already knows it. That means it's predestined. Right? Clear, right? The question is clear to everybody. All right. Now, if the question is clear, then you have a whole week to think of how could that possibly be true. Will you say God knows everything, or will you say that God doesn't know everything? That you can think about, and we will discuss it next week. Again, if anyone wants to help with any of the university work going on, please get in touch. Okay, so that's it. Hari Om.
Very well. Okay.
Thank you, Janki ma'am.
Hari Om, Janki.
Thank
Hari Om
you,
Janki
ji.
ji.
Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Hari.